Welcome to the Deep Dive Library, your go-to podcast for real talks on entrepreneurship, finance, and personal growth. No fluff, just bold insights to help you grow, build, and lead. Let's dive in. Today, we're tackling something really fundamental. It comes up everywhere, whether you're starting a business or just trying to learn guitar.
Absolutely. It's this core idea about how we see ourselves and our abilities. We're talking about the power of a growth mindset.
Exactly. And it's foundational for pushing past limits and really achieving what you're capable of.
It really is. That underlying belief system, it shapes pretty much everything else. How you approach challenges, how you handle setbacks.
Which is why we wanted to do a deep dive on it.
Yeah.
We've looked at some key sources. Carol Dweck's work obviously is essential.
Right, the foundational stuff.
Yeah, and also insights from Angela Duckworth on grit, James Clear on building habits, even Ryan Holiday on dealing with obstacles.
A really good mix, actually. They all touch on this from slightly different angles.
Our mission today is to kind of unpack all that. We want to understand the practical side. How does this actually work? And give you listeners some concrete takeaways. Specifically, we're zeroing in on a few key questions that kept coming up. Like, what are the actual habits of people with a growth mindset?
The how-tos, basically, not just the what.
Exactly. And then, how does having this perspective really improve your chances of success? In business, in life generally.
Does it make a tangible difference?
Right. And the big one, can you change your mindset if you feel stuck in a more fixed way of thinking? Is that even possible?
That's crucial, because if you can't change it, then talking about it is just interesting but not helpful.
True. We also want to touch on some good resources, books, maybe other things if you want to build this mindset.
And finally, maybe the toughest part, how do you stay motivated? When you hit those inevitable failures or setbacks, how do you keep going?
Yeah, because that's when the mindset really gets tested, doesn't it?
Definitely. Knowing the theory is one thing, but applying it when things get hard, that's the real challenge.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning then, defining it. This concept really got traction thanks to Carol Dweck.
Right. Absolutely. Her work laid the groundwork, and the core idea is, well, it sounds simple, but it's profound. The view you adopt about your own qualities dramatically affects your life.
And she talks about two main views, these two mindsets.
Right. You've got the fixed mindset on one side. This is the belief that your basic qualities, intelligence, talent, personality, they're just carved in stone. You've got what you've got.
So if you believe that, you probably feel this constant need to prove yourself right, to show you do have enough of whatever it is.
Exactly. Because if it's fixed, then any struggle, any failure, it feels like a final judgment on your fundamental worth or ability. It's threatening.
That sounds incredibly stressful. Like you'd avoid challenges just in case you might fail and look bad.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You stick to what you know you're good at. Now, contrast that with the growth mindset. This is the belief that your abilities aren't fixed. They can be developed through dedication, through learning, through, sheer hard work and persistence.
So it's not saying talent doesn't exist or that everyone starts at the same place.
Not at all. Some people might have a natural aptitude, sure. But the growth mindset says that's just the starting point. Experience, good strategies, effort, input from others, that's how you cultivate ability.
Okay. So potential isn't predetermined. It's something you unlock through what you do.
Exactly. It reframes effort. In a fixed mindset, needing effort means you're not smart enough. In a growth mindset, effort is the path to getting smarter, to mastering something. Challenges are opportunities to grow, not threats to your ego.
That makes a lot of sense conceptually. But let's talk impact. How does just believing you can grow actually lead to, better results in the real world?
Yeah, that's the crucial link. And the research here is pretty compelling. It shows up across so many areas.
Like what?
Well, academics is a big one. Students with more of a growth mindset tend to perform better, especially in challenging subjects. They're more likely to persist, see setbacks as temporary, and ultimately achieve more. Duckworth's work on grit connects strongly here.
So it fuels that perseverance, that grit you need to push through difficulty.
Absolutely. It's not just about raw intelligence. It's about the mindset that lets you apply and develop that intelligence.
Okay. What about beyond school?
We see links to better emotional health, like coping with stress more effectively. Even physical health people with a growth mindset might be more likely to stick with exercise programs or healthy eating, seeing slip-ups as learning opportunities rather than reasons to quit.
And relationships too.
Yeah, think about it. If you believe people can change and grow, you're probably more willing to work through conflicts, give feedback constructively, and accept it yourself. You don't just write people off or yourself when things get tough.
That's really far-reaching. What about in the workplace? That's a big focus for many of our listeners.
Huge implications there. Organizations that foster a growth mindset tend to be more innovative, more adaptable. Employees feel safer taking risks, suggesting new ideas, learning from mistakes.
And leaders, does their mindset matter?
Oh, massively. Leaders with a growth mindset see potential in their people. They invest in development, they welcome feedback, even criticism because they see it as data for improvement. They tackle obstacles proactively.
Versus a fixed mindset leader who might just look for ready-made stars and maybe shy away from tough feedback.
Exactly. They might see talent as something you either have or you don't, so their focus is on identifying it, not necessarily cultivating it. That can really limit a team's growth and potential.
It makes me think of those key IPP schools. They explicitly focus on praising effort and the learning process, not just telling kids they're smart.
That's a perfect example. And the results speak for themselves, helping kids from backgrounds with fewer resources achieve really impressive academic outcomes, getting into college. It shows how you can actively teach this mindset.
Right, which is a great segue. If we want to cultivate this, what are the actual tangible habits we can build? Where do we start?
Okay, let's get practical. One habit that's maybe less obvious but really powerful is consciously choosing who you surround yourself with.
The whole you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with idea.
Pretty much, yeah. If your inner circle is full of people who embrace challenges, learn from failure, and believe in growth, that mindset becomes normalized. It rubs off. Conversely, constant negativity or fixed mindset talk can really drag you down.
Makes sense. Build your own growth squad. What's next?
Seeking out and, crucially, using feedback. This is a big differentiator. Fixed mindset. Feedback feels like judgment. Growth mindset. Feedback is fuel.
How do you actually do that, though? Especially if the feedback stings a bit.
A practical approach is, first, just say thank you. Acknowledge the person took the time. Then, listen or read through, specifically looking for just one thing you can agree might be helpful, even if you disagree with other parts.
Just one kernel of truth.
Yeah, then write down one concrete action step based on that kernel. And then the most important part, actually practice that step. It turns criticism from an attack into a mini coaching session you give yourself.
I like that, taking control of the process.
Exactly. And related to that is how you view other people's success. Fixed mindset can lead to jealousy or feeling threatened.
Why them and not me?
Right. The growth mindset habit is to see others' success as inspiration, as proof that something is possible. What can you learn from their journey? What strategies did they use? How did they overcome their setbacks?
Turning comparison into curiosity.
Spot on. Another habit, super simple but surprisingly effective, is using the word yet.
Yet? How does that work?
Just adding it to statements of limitation. Instead of, I can't figure this out. Say, I can't figure this out yet. Instead of, I'm not good at public speaking. Try, I'm not good at public speaking yet.
Okay. It instantly reframes it. It implies it's a temporary state, not a permanent flaw.
Precisely. It keeps the door open for future progress. It's a little mental trick that reinforces the possibility of growth.
I can see that. I haven't finished this project yet. Feels much better than just, I haven't finished.
Doesn't it? Another vital habit, especially for long journeys, is celebrating the process. Not just waiting for the big final win.
Focusing on the small steps along the way.
Yes. Growth takes time. There will be plateaus, frustrations. If you only focus on the distant outcome, it's easy to lose motivation. Acknowledge the effort you put in today. Celebrate learning something new, even if it wasn't the final goal. Recognize the small wins. It builds resilience.
Appreciating the climb itself, not just the view from the summit.
Beautifully put. And that ties right into deliberate practice. This isn't just logging hours. It's focused, intentional effort designed to improve specific weaknesses.
Like not just jogging, but timing your miles and trying to improve your pace on certain segments.
Exactly. It involves setting specific, slightly challenging goals, stretch goals. It means identifying where you're weak and targeting that. Seeking out things that push you just beyond your current comfort zone, systematically tracking progress, ideally getting feedback, maybe from a coach or mentor.
It sounds much more active and analytical than just practicing.
It is. It's practice with the intent to learn and improve, not just repeat. Think of elite athletes or musicians. They don't just play. They break things down, work on specific techniques, push their limits constantly.
Okay. What else is in the toolkit?
Structuring your environment. This is a big theme in James Clear's Atomic Habits. He argues that disciplined people aren't necessarily heroes of willpower. They're just better at designing their environment to avoid temptation.
So making the good choice the easy choice.
Basically, yes. If you want to eat healthier, don't keep junk food in the house. If you want to focus, turn off notifications. Make your environment support your goals rather than constantly fight against them. It conserves your willpower for when you really need it.
Building systems instead of relying on sheer grit all the time.
Right. And another clear idea is implementation intentions. This is about making a specific plan for when and where you'll do a new habit.
Not just, I'll exercise more, but I will go for a run at 7 a.m. around the park.
Exactly. The formula is, I will behave here at time and location. It removes the decision-making burden in the moment you've already decided. Habit stacking is a variation linking a new habit to one you already do. After I brush my teeth, I will meditate for 5 minutes.
Giving the new habit an anchor in your existing routine. Smart.
Very effective. And Clear also stresses making habits attractive. We're more likely to stick with things we actually, enjoy on some level.
But what if the habit is inherently difficult, like studying?
Find ways to make it more appealing. Maybe link it to something you do enjoy, like only listening to your favorite podcast while you're exercising, temptation bundling. Or reframe it, focus on the feeling of accomplishment afterwards. Or tap into social influence, join a study group, work out with a friend. Find the version of the habit that brings you satisfaction.
Making it feel less like a chore.
Yes, and fundamentally underlying all this is the habit of focusing on effort and learning, not innate talent, especially in how we talk to ourselves and others.
Back to the KPP example, praising the work, not just the result.
Right. Saying, you worked so hard on that is better for fostering a growth mindset than you're so smart. The latter implies a fixed quality. Praising effort, strategy, persistence, learning that reinforces the idea that abilities are built. And modeling it yourself is huge. Kids, employees, they watch what you do more than what you say.
So if you face a setback, talking openly about what you learned from it, rather than hiding it or blaming external factors.
Absolutely, showing that learning from failure is normal and expected.
One last habit.
Cultivating a sense of purpose. Angela Duckworth talks about this in Grit. Connecting your efforts to something bigger than yourself, something that contributes to others. It provides a much deeper reservoir of motivation.
Like the bricklayer parable. Are you just laying bricks, building a wall, or building a cathedral?
Exactly that. Having that cathedral in mind, that sense of calling or contribution, makes the daily bricklaying more meaningful and helps you push through when it gets tedious or difficult. It fuels grit.
Okay, that's a comprehensive list of habits. It feels like building blocks. But let's tackle that big question. Can someone who really feels like they have a fixed mindset, maybe based on years of experience, actually change?
It's a fair question. Mindsets feel very personal, very ingrained. They're shaped by our history, how parents or teachers reacted to our successes and failures.
Yeah, they don't come out of nowhere.
But the research strongly suggests, yes, change is possible. Mindsets are beliefs, and beliefs can be changed. It might not be easy, but they aren't immutable personality traits.
What's the evidence for that?
Dweck herself did interventions, these brainology workshops, teaching students that the brain is like a muscle, that it gets stronger with effort and learning, that intelligence isn't fixed, actually led to improved motivation and grades. Just understanding neuroplasticity can be powerful.
So learning about the brain's capacity to change helps change your mindset about your own capacities.
Exactly. We've also seen it in workplace training. Programs designed to teach managers growth mindset principles have shown they become better at spotting improvement in employees and more willing to coach those who are struggling, rather than just writing them off.
So it's teachable, at least to some extent.
Yes. Now, it's important to have realistic expectations. One study, for instance, found that while an intervention could change people's mindset about stress, helping them see it as potentially enhancing rather than purely negative,
Right.
it didn't significantly shift their more fundamental life mindset, their overall view of whether life is generally easy or hard. So some deeply held beliefs might be more resistant to change or require different, maybe more intensive approaches than just, say, reading an article.
That's an important nuance. It's possible, but maybe not a simple flip of a switch for everything. It takes work.
Absolutely. It's a process, a journey, not an overnight transformation, but the potential for change is definitely there.
Which leads perfectly into that final challenge,
Yeah.
dealing with failure and setbacks, because that journey will have bumps. How does a growth mindset help here? And how can we adopt that approach when we stumble?
This is where the mindsets really diverge. For someone with a fixed mindset, failure is often deeply personal. It feels like proof of their inadequacy. I failed, therefore I am a failure.
It defines them.
Yes, but for someone with a growth mindset, failure is, well, it's still unpleasant, obviously, but it's seen as information. It's a problem to be solved. Okay, that didn't work, why not? What can I learn? What should I try differently next time?
Like that story of Jim Marshall, the football player who ran the wrong way. He didn't let it end his career.
Exactly. He faced it, learned from it, arguably used it to become even more focused. He separated the event from his identity and potential. It's about seeing setbacks as part of the learning process, not the end of the road.
So what helps cultivate that response?
Hope is crucial. Believing that your actions can make a difference. Interestingly, some research suggests experiencing controllable challenges early on, where you learn your efforts matter, can build resilience later.
Learning you can influence outcomes.
Yes. Another tactic is anticipating difficulty. Ryan Holiday writes about this, drawing on Stoicism. Mentally rehearsing potential problems isn't negative thinking, it's preparation. When setbacks occur, they feel less shocking, less overwhelming because you've already considered the possibility.
Takes the sting out of the surprise.
Right. And central to that Stoic approach is focusing on your perception and your response, the things you can control. You can't always control the event, but you can control how you interpret it and react to it.
Choosing not to see it as a catastrophe, but as a challenge to be met.
Precisely. Try to see it objectively. Look for any potential opportunity hidden within the difficulty. Rockefeller was famous for this during panics. Steady your nerves. Focus your energy entirely on your next move, the constructive response. Ignore the noise, the things you can't influence. Remember Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events.
Easier said than done in the heat of the moment, I imagine.
It takes practice, for sure. It's a mental discipline. Another practice that helps is gratitude.
Gratitude when things are going wrong.
Especially then, actively looking for things to be grateful for. However small, support from a friend, a lesson learned, even just the chance to try again, it shifts your focus. It counters the negativity bias and reminds you of resources and strengths, improving your mood and ability to cope.
Finding the good, even amidst the bad.
Yes. Visualization can also be a tool. Imagine your future self, someone who has successfully navigated this current setback. What perspective do they have? What advice would they give your present self?
Tapping into that future resilience. I like that.
And finally, monitor your language again. That yet comes back. Instead of, this is impossible, maybe this feels really hard right now, but I'm learning. Shifting the internal narrative makes a difference.
It's like building an emotional and mental toolkit for resilience.
That's a great way to put it.
So for listeners inspired to build this toolkit and explore further, what are the go-to resources? You mentioned a few key books.
Definitely. Carol Dweck's Mindset. The New Psychology of Success is the essential starting point. It lays out the whole framework.
The foundational text.
Absolutely. Then Angela Duckworth's Grit. The power of passion and perseverance is fantastic for understanding that persistence aspect and how it connects to mindset and long-term achievement.
Right, putting the mindset into action over time.
And for the how-to of building the habits we talked about, James Clear's Atomic Habits is incredibly practical and actionable, just packed with strategies.
For making those small changes stick.
Exactly. And for dealing with the inevitable obstacles and failures, Ryan Holiday's The Obstacle is the Way is excellent. It uses Stoic philosophy to provide a powerful framework for reframing challenges.
So those four are a really strong core.
A very strong core. Beyond that, you could look into the approaches used in places like the KIPP schools for real-world application, especially in education. The Neuroleadership Institute does interesting work on the brain science side.
And maybe books on related themes.
Sure, things like The Art of Possibility touch on reframing and potential, or memoirs like Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes show personal journeys of embracing challenge. Even parenting books increasingly incorporate growth mindset principles. There's a lot out there once you start looking.
Plenty to explore to keep that learning journey going.
Definitely.
Which brings us to a final thought to leave our listeners with. As we've discussed all this, maybe consider this. What if your perceived limits, the things you think you're just not good at, have less to do with some fixed innate lack of talent and more to do with your willingness. Your willingness to embrace the challenge, to persist when you fail, and to fundamentally believe that you can learn, adapt, and change.
So maybe that willingness, that belief in your own capacity for growth.
Maybe that's the real engine of achievement. Perhaps even what we sometimes mistake for genius.
It certainly shifts the focus from waiting for inspiration or talent to actively building capability through effort and learning, a much more empowering view.
Indeed. If you found value here but haven't subscribed yet, why wait? Every subscriber fuels this channel to keep delivering the real game-changing content you need. Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. And now don't miss out on the next episode that could change everything for you.